Hey, everybody, welcome to the Day One, Week One podcast. I am your host, Billy Bowering, and today we have an incredible guest, someone that I've known my whole Christian life because he was responsible for bringing me to the front end of the church and letting the pastor speak directly to me. That was awesome. Thank you for that, my friend.
You bet.
Obviously, I'm super grateful for that because it changed my life. So, yeah, I've been in and out. I've been in and out, unfortunately, of that chase, of that race, all of those things. But more importantly, I'm saved by the grace of God, and I'm super excited the fact that you're doing the first podcast that we have on this program. So let me introduce my buddy. So he's a brother in Christ, obviously, because he was responsible for that. I remember him saying, "Hey, what are you doing Sunday?" And I said, "I don't know." He says, "Well, we're going to go for a ride." And we pulled into a church parking lot. That was awesome. His name is Walter Hill. He's a Navy veteran. That's where we met. He was a truck driver for a bunch of years, just like I was there. And then now he's transitioned. He's got all of the theological training that I guess the world tells you that you have to have before you can step into a pulpit. But he's got so much more than that. He's got an anointing from God about his word. He's an incredible preacher. He's the pastor of Wellsprings Church in Cody, Wyoming. Most recently, he started a new journey with being a hospice chaplain. And he's here today to tell us about one of the stories of an individual that absolutely, he said, changed his life. He, in fact, to the point where he wrote a book about it. And he's here today to tell us about it. And I'm excited to have you on here, Walt. Thank you so much for, I know you said you blocked out a bunch of time for us. I appreciate you after all of the technical difficulties in the beginning to hang with me. And we're gonna get this out, but I'm gonna open the stage to you and let you do what you do, man.
Well, brother, it's good to be with you, man. I'm excited about the opportunity. I think all the stuff you guys are doing with Day One, Week One is really just awesome stuff. There's such a profound need for what you guys are doing, and so I'm just proud of you, man. You know, hopefully that doesn't come across like condescending or whatever, but I'm really proud of you. I think you're doing a good work, and I'm happy to be on here with you. For all of that, I only have to just correct one little thing. I'm not in Cody, Wyoming. I'm in Casper, Wyoming. So I pastor the Wellsprings Vineyard Church in Casper.
My okay.
It's all good.
I think you said Casper.
Yeah. No, we're good.
Yeah. All right. So, well, I mean, you never know. You might have another campus in Cody.
Yeah, it could happen.
I love it.
So I'm bivocational though. I always have been. I like to work and pastor. The full-time pastoring vibe has just never been my thing. I tried it once. It wasn't any fun. So, and for the last 3.5 years, I've been a hospice chaplain, almost 4 years, been a hospice chaplain. And over the course of that, obviously, I've met some amazing, beautiful people along the way. We had to figure out a report the other day for Medicare, figure that. But I think it's 450 or something people that I've been able to walk with at the end of their life.
That's a lot.
And so, yeah. And so seen a lot. Hospice is an interesting thing. Most people in Western culture avoid death just almost completely, almost live in denial that it's even how it goes. We do, we're around death every day. So I've seen a lot of things for sure. And my role as the chaplain actually has been pretty multifaceted because sometimes it's actually to help the staff members. We'll have young nurses come to hospice that are right out of nursing school or whatever. They've never even seen anybody die. And so walking with them through some of that stuff. So the job is it's rewarding, it's challenging, it's all those things. But when we got the call that we were admitting a guy last year, his name was Keith Thomas. And when we get our admits, at first they're just names. We don't know anything about their details. and treat everybody the same. Obviously, it's not like one is more important than the other. And if I had no idea, man, that when I heard his name for the first time to how the story would end, I just had no idea. It was inspiring. It was heartbreaking. All the things that it just completely took us all by surprise. So the first hard part, Keith was only 32 years old. Most people on hospice, it's not to sound aloof about it, but it's more logical. They're older. You know that they've lived a long time. Maybe they fought with cancer or COPD or something, and they're finally done with that. So we don't have very many young people on hospice. So that was a little puzzling at first when we heard his age. Then they told us he was a veteran, Army National Guard out of Laramie, Wyoming. So that seemed even a little more puzzling. We were getting the referral from the Veterans Administration. We don't get a lot of those. So that was puzzling. It just felt very odd, very atypical for us. And what we found out, tragically enough, was that Keith was dying from cancer, from toxic exposure in the Middle East. Some people are familiar with the burn pits and the fact that we were disposing of the trash just by burning anything and everything in the open. Keith himself, his unit was never actually stationed next to a burn pit. All Keith wound up telling me is that if the wind shifted the right direction, they could all smell it. But apparently, whatever was floating on the air was enough. And so he had developed the most just aggressive, brutal form of cancer any of us had ever seen. And so the book is just the story of meeting him. And does that show up right?
Oh, yeah.
Meeting him and the journey of taking care of him, and ultimately his family, how they took care of him, and how that impacted everybody. And it's an inspirational story, man. But it's a hard one. It was a hard journey. Yeah.
So the family actually reached out to you, and was it because the family had met you through that at that point? Were they like, hey, something about writing the story? How did you become the person that they wanted to do that?
Well, it was a remarkable journey, honestly, all the way through. The way hospice works, all the disciplines are required to meet a new patient. And so when I went in and I met Keith, and said, hey, I'm the chaplain at hospice, he was, I don't know, people might be able to tell from the photo on the book, but he was a big kid, man, big, strong kid. And he had a hoodie on. It was kind of odd because it wasn't that cold. I found out later it was because he'd started wearing that because it covered up so much of what was going wrong with him. But when I met him, he was incredibly respectful, man. He was exactly like you would think a young soldier would be. He was amazing. And he said, no offense. He said, I don't know what I think about God, and I don't know what I think about all that stuff, and I don't know what I think about church and all of that. And he said, so I don't need you today, which is a real common thing. Most soldiers that aren't Christians at all, they hear chaplain, then they just think this is the guy that comes to give you your last rites, right? Like right when you're imminent. And so he was basically very nicely saying, I'm not dying today, so we're good and I don't need you, kind of thing, which is fine. My service in hospice is totally optional. It's completely up to what the patients want.
In other words, don't speed this up.
Well, and I think sometimes, depending on how people, we can like it or not, but Christians haven't always been a great advertisement for Jesus,
That's a profound statement.
Well, it's just
it's very true. Yeah.
We all know that we've seen the negative side of church and all of that kind of stuff. And so I told him, I said, hey man, it's fine. It's completely up to you. Here, if you need me, kind of thing. And kind of walked away from it at that point. But what ended up happening was from that minimal start, by the time the story is over, um, Keith was like my own son. We just got very, very close, and I wound up close to the family. And so when it was over, and he had passed, his mother, who's just a champion, dude. If there's another hero in the book, it's Janet, his mother. We have never seen anybody ever take care of somebody like she did. It was the most amazing thing. Like running a marathon that's breaking your heart the whole time. I mean, she was incredible. And when the whole thing was over and we were kind of sitting in the beginning stages of like the grief and the aftermath, she just kept saying that what really troubled her was Keith gave his life for his country in such a way, but no one will ever know.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, maybe we should tell him. And, we started talking. And she had read my other book. And so we wound up discussing it. And she asked me if I'd tell it. And so that's what we did. And like I say, the Keith Thomas story is the title of it. It went up available on Amazon yesterday. And so far, it's doing pretty well, just as word is passing around among people that
Mm-hmm.
know him and everything. But I hope everybody listening will get a copy of it. It'll challenge you, man. It'll inspire you and might even break your heart, but in a good way, you know.
Right.
But that's how it happened. Is that she just was really. She said, our son gave his life for America, just like all the other people that have a flag draped over their casket, but the way it happened, no one will ever know who Keith was. And I thought, well, that's not right. It's the
Right.
bravest kid I've ever known, hands down. And so we wanted to tell his story. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, um, like the last time, like the first book that you wrote, is there I mean, this one is a little more sensitive, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Obviously,
Hmm.
there's going to be a specific audience for the book, I think.
Well, I'll tell you what we decided to do. The book is not. I think the easy way to say it, the book is not about Keith's cancer. It's about Keith and his family.
About his
And
character, not his
yes,
cancer.
and I like that. Yeah, very good. Definitely about his character and not his cancer. And so far, the people that have read it that were like helping me proof it and stuff like that, what they took away from it was they were so inspired by his family and his mother and how they took care of each other. Um, I, uh, I attempt when I talk to people about it, I attempt to get emotional. I don't always. I attempt to not get emotional. I don't always succeed. So fair warning there. But they literally build. They walked through something so horrible that it just broke my heart to watch it. And so when people start reading it, what they take away from it is that everyone can make a difference. Like if your family's facing something impossible, God did this amazing thing by giving us the capacity to love each other and help each other. And what people take away from it is that family can be enough if we'll go ahead and step to the plate and just walk together.
Yeah.
So I honestly, at first, I wrote it very specific audience in mind, but as people have read it, what they're saying is anybody who's got a family would benefit from seeing a glimpse into what a family is able to do if they just roll up their sleeves and decide, hey, we're going to walk through this together. And so it might have a broader appeal than I originally thought, actually, when I wrote it down from what I'm being told. And it's the Thomas family, they're just absolutely, they're an example of what makes America a great place to be. Their
Absolutely.
family was just incredible. Start from one end all the way to the other. The cousins, the grandkids, everybody. They're
Wow.
just incredible people. And they, it's interesting to me because, and I think our veterans are the heroes of the ages, man. Like I just, wounded or not, makes no difference what part you served in, whatever. Like anyone who's volunteered and worn a uniform, to me, that's hero level stuff for our country.
Well, there was a
And
guy that I talked to not too long ago. He was a Marine, and I said, I asked him, I said, oh, and only just because it's a question, how long did you serve? Right. And he goes, oh, I only did 4 years. I never really did anything. I mean, I don't even know if I should call myself a veteran. And I said, wait a minute. And he's a good friend of mine. So I said, no,
yeah,
wait a minute. I said, did you not put your name on a line that said you were willing to give everything, including your life, for this country? And it was like, well, I never really looked at it like that. And so, yeah, so I'm with you on the inspiration of the people that sign that dotted line and raise their right hand and say, let's go do that.
yeah.
So,
Well, I think people are very flippant nowadays about the fact that it's an all volunteer force. To me, that tells the whole story. Every single person lost in battle volunteered to be there. Every wounded warrior that comes home with one leg, they volunteered, man. None of them were drafted. They stood free will in a MEP station in a row and took an oath and went to serve our country, and we should take better care of them than we do. And so, yeah, I guess what I would say is just, Keith. It was shocking to me what happened to him, and then the level of bravery and courage that he showed was just remarkable. I was watching some things the other day, and everybody knows who Marcus Luttrell is, the survivor of Lone Survivor and all that stuff. And it was an interview, and he was talking about their big gunfight on the mountain and what happened that day when they got ambushed. He made the most profound statement, I thought. He said, all soldiers go into battle ready for their light to be snuffed out in an instant. And he said, it's a whole nother thing when you hide beside a rock and you can see the Reaper walking toward you. And it just struck me, not only for Marcus's story and his team and what they went through, but I realized that that's what so amazed me about Keith was he was dying a little more every day. And yet, dude, that kid got up every single day and he faced it. He stood up, he looked it right in the eye and was like, "No, I'm living one more day, and I'm loving my family one more day. I'm laughing with my brothers one more day. And he was, when people think cancer, you know, mercifully enough, most of the time cancer is very invisible. It's internal, and they tell us they have to scan it to tell us, that we even have it. And we start to see the outward effects, we lose weight or whatever. You see some of that stuff. Keith had the most horrific thing going on that I've ever seen. He had cancer that was eating his muscles and his flesh, and not affecting his organs. So he was dying from the outside in rather than the inside out. And it was, dude, it was just horrifying what was happening to him. It was unbelievable. Our medical director has been doing medicine for years and years and years. He'd never seen anything like it. Our hospice nurses were, the one that was assigned. She's just a trooper, man. She's a vet herself. She's a warrior herself. And she scoured the internet and every medical source she could find, just looking for some kind of a clue. Like, how do we help this kid with this? She couldn't even find any answers anywhere about it. It was just awful. And yet Keith, man, his spirit was so resilient, man. That kid would get up, and it got harder and harder every day for him to get up. And yet he was absolutely not going to be looked at like some kind of a experiment gone wrong, man. His mom would help him shower every day. She would help him get dressed every day. If you went to see him, you weren't finding him back in his bed. He was out in the garage sitting next to the motorcycles, or in the living room petting the dog, but he was not going to lay down and just take it. And he was living in a level of just pain and discomfort that was unbelievable. And it was just remarkable. I've just never known a more courageous kid ever. And so when they asked, they said, you know, somebody's got to know Keith's story. I was very happy to try to help.
Well, that's awesome. So, are there any parts, maybe parts in the book or stuff? Uh, Obviously, we want to give a little bit of a teaser because I mean, we're not going to try to tell the whole story, because we want people to get their hands on this book. When I put my order in, a lot of times, I mean, the professionals do the interview after they read the book. I haven't read it yet because it just came out yesterday. So sure. My copy's en route, which I'm excited about.
Yeah.
But I mean, Amazon, $16. I mean, it should be $25. It should be $50. And like you said, you were talking earlier about where the proceeds go from the book, and word of mouth is the most powerful avenue for letting people know. I'm pretty sure that Keith's story is going to get out there because you're really good about doing your research and your marketing. I saw you on several different churches that, you know, for your first book, and you were kind of promoting that. And I think you're still seeing results from that. But this one, like you said, it completely changed you as you went. I'm curious if I could ask, did he have any siblings or family members that also served?
So no, Keith was the only veteran in their family, and he you know, so many times in these industrial towns like Casper, you know, these kids come up and their option is to learn how to do a trade in the oil field, and which is a good living. I mean, that's fine, but so many of them want a little college money or something, and so Keith had enlisted in the Guard, and I think like so many by that point, you know, he made his deployment to Bahrain in 2014. So by that point, the war on terror is like the normal, right? Like they know that they can get deployed. I don't think it's like early on when so many of the Guard unit were surprised, you know. Um, so he knew that he could get deployed, and they did, and they were a security force at a base over there. And so what he told me was that he was very, you know, he was very grateful, obviously, that he wasn't out, you know, driving around in a Hummer and dealing with IEDs and ambushes and all those kinds of things. When he did his duty, you know, not that it was easy, but it felt relatively safe. And so he was grateful for that, and he did his time, and he made his friends, and he, you know, he got out. And one of the things that was really interesting, you mentioned your Marine friend. One of the things that was really challenging for the family, and they've talked about it a lot since, is how little Keith said about it. Because to him, he didn't really do anything. You know, he really looked at it like, you know, I got my college money in exchange for that. I went on this deployment. I stood guard security at an air base. I checked IDs. Whatever. And so he just hardly ever, to a point, all the family members were like, he almost never said anything about the whole entire event. And it's not until, I think the math is, it was 9 years after that deployment, and he had a spot underneath his arm, and he just, typical young guy, right? We're indestructible. He's got stuff to do. He's working. Him and his brother were super close. So they're, Call of Duty gaming it all night and running around drinking beer and having a good life. And so he's just like, well, it's a bump, then it's a bruise, then it's a thing. And then he finally got to where it was hurting him so bad when he was trying to work that's the first hint anybody even had that something was wrong. And he told his mom, I think I had to run up to the hospital and see what this is. And he told me that he thought maybe it was just some kind of musculature type injury, like a torn muscle or something of that nature. And of course, they started poking around and they said, we'll do a CT scan real quick. And when the CT scan at the emergency room, they tell you to go see an oncologist, that's when you know you're in trouble. And he already had just a massive tumor that was growing under his arm, and then it was just off to the races with it after that. It was really fast and really aggressive. Um, and so his service to the country, again, nobody else in the family had done that. And so they're so precious. They have a gigantic flagpole in their front yard, and they installed it because Keith was going on deployment. And they started flying an American flag in their front yard every single day that he was gone, in memory of the fact that the guys were deployed. And so they have flown their flag there every day ever since. And so their patriotism as a family is not broken, even though the circumstances have really left them just crushed by what happened. But they Keith was their soldier, and then they lost him. And so that's, I think, part of why it's just been so devastating for them. It's really been difficult for them to put that together.
Definitely a hero.
Oh man,
Definitely
yeah.
a hero.
Yeah.
Again, like you're saying, he just signed up for, hey, I'll just give this a shot, get some college money, things like that. I remember when I was in the Navy, I was on the John F. Kennedy during Desert Shield, Desert Storm. And I remember I was in the chow line, and this guy next to me, it was the day after the captain came over the 1MC and said, this is what we trained for. We're getting ready to do these operations, things like that, where it was the day before the big shock and awe of all that. And I remember I was standing in the chow line, and the guy behind me looked, maybe he was probably an admin or something. No shade to the admin guys in the Navy. First of all, no shade.
I got you.
Okay.
Yep.
But I remember he was standing next to me. He's like, man, I came in here to get college money. I'm not trying to go to war. What are we doing?
Yeah,
then, of course, hard nose me, I thinking that, all right, let's go. I'm going to stand on the front, on the bow of the John F. Kennedy with a 50 cal, and we're going to go through the Suez Canal, and I'm just going to start shooting people. I'm thinking all of that, right? I'm like, I'm ready to go to war. Let's go. No, I was like, you need to shut up. If you don't like it, dude, there's a way out on every side of this boat. You can get out of this. So it was bad. So in retrospect, he's saying, he felt like he didn't do anything. The fact that he, without complaining, went and did exactly what the government asked him to do.
Yeah.
Yeah. My hope, at least, is that they helped or were a part of some of the help, and that the family's not left with a massive amount of financial stress over that.
So, so some of your listeners probably are familiar with the changes they've made to this thing called the PACT Act. And so the veterans that have this toxic exposure from the Middle East are green lighted almost immediately with medical care and their full disability. And I'm grateful for yeah, absolutely. So yes, that took care of the immediate strain of that. We know that President Trump had famously, in his first term, had signed that executive order where they could seek even experimental treatments and stuff. And so for the year from the ER visit to when Keith wound up on hospice was just 1 year. And during that year, they were able to try to get into some various trials for some things, because when they checked in with the VA in Denver, Colorado, and they still, the family still really wrestles with this, is that when they checked in, nobody at the VA was surprised. They looked up where Keith had been deployed, and they examined what was happening to his body, and like you and I would stamp a piece of paper, the lady said, "Oh, okay, yeah, we're seeing a lot of this." And so Keith's family was like, whoa, what do you mean you see a lot of this? And of course, the poor lady working at the VA, it's not like she can really say very much. And the point of writing the book is to celebrate Keith. So there's not a lot of gotcha, little tell all segments or whatever. That wasn't the point of it.
Right.
But there were several people along the way that didn't want anyone to know their names that said, she told the family, she said, this is a big, big problem and nobody's talking about it.
Hmm.
And so, and then Keith for himself, so they almost immediately, they approved his disability. So he had his money come in and they were taking care of the costs. Now for the family, it was still difficult because Denver is a 4-hour drive from Casper. And so all the things that they could try to do for him were in Denver. So the family was back and forth, I guess just dozens of trips trying to find if there was anything that could help him. But no matter what they tried to do, this cancer was just, it was just eating him alive, man. It was unbelievable. So by the time local oncology here said, there's just nothing else it's not reacting to anything, and you guys need to maybe consider hospice. Dude, that is a heart-wrenching thing for a 30-something-year-old kid to hear. You know what I mean? Like that just knocked them flat back because he was a fighter, man. These Army guys, I always tease, I was in the Navy, you were in the Navy. I always feel like maybe we're our own sort of like lesser brand of veteran, you know what I mean? Because these, you know what I'm saying? Like
I do.
A hardship for me was that Mid-Rats was closed. And a hardship for an Army guy is like somebody threw a grenade at me. You know what I mean? Like it's a totally different scenario. And these young guys, man, they're warriors, dude. They're fighters. And so to be told your fight is over when you're, 32, 33 years old, it was an incredibly difficult thing for Keith to accept. But like I say, he switched his fight. His fight became, I'm going to fight every day. I'm going to live my life. I'm going to be part of my family. I'm going to keep trying to. One of the most amazing things about this guy was his sense of humor. He honestly, I think maybe somewhere in his DNA, he was like, my job is to make somebody in this room laugh, or somebody in this room is supposed to smile. And so he would spend more time, bro, trying to figure out how to encourage us. And he was the one dying. And
Right.
he was remarkable. He would look and see that, like, I'll never forget one day I was looking at him and I watched him. He went to move and he grimaced. You could just tell it was absolutely agony for him to move. And specifics aren't important, but dude, he was on every kind of pain medicine that we could even figure out how to give him. And all it was doing was just kind of dulling it, but he was just in agony. And so he moved, and it just, my heart, I guess, I couldn't catch it before it got to my face, so my face did something, and he caught it, and I'll never forget, man, he sat back in the chair, and he goes, now, why would you look at me like that? And he said it real serious, so I thought, like, oh, crap, I offended him, or but he was messing with me. The guy dying was messing with me. And he goes, you keep looking at me like there's something wrong with me. He goes, there's something way more wrong with you, chaplain. You were in the Navy. And I started laughing, and he laughed, and it hurt him to laugh, dude, by that point. But he was he was just bright, man. He had so much life in him. And he was determined somebody's going to smile on the very last day, man. And he actually, he was making wisecrack comments to his mom the last day that he was able to still talk. He was still, like trying to be funny and trying to lighten the mood. And he was remarkable, really remarkable.
I don't know how many of us would be able to do. I don't know if I have that kind of internal fight. I would be.
Yeah.
I don't know what I would be. All I know is that I don't think I could have that kind of character.
Well, I think what amazed me about it is that what you're saying? It's like he was like a mirror And I'm looking and going, I think I would be so angry. I think I would be so bitter. I think I would be so, I mean, dude, if anybody that I've ever met had every reason to have self-pity and be upset, it was Keith. And I'm not saying he didn't have his moments, because he, bless his heart, man, he was fighting through something awful. So he had his moments, but you could see him choose. That's what so inspired me. You could watch that kid, that dark stuff would go across his face, and you could watch him choose, no, I'm not doing that. And he would rise back up out of it. It was just remarkable to watch, because it was just eating him alive. It was it was really bad. So some of that, we did the book in a way to honor him, and the family wanted, like, the reality of it to be there, but without it turning into some kind of thing that distracted from who he was.
Right.
And so in the book, there's some photographs. They're hard.
Mm-hmm.
They're and honestly, probably most remarkably, when we reviewed all the photographs we had, because he wound up with open, visible cancerous tumors all over his body. It was horrible. And when we went back, the nurse and I, and reviewed the photographs, the only ones we were able to put in the book were actually from early on. The ones that were toward the end were just too
much.
They were just too much. One of the most remarkable things, and I don't know, I just want people to see his face, so I keep holding this up. But one of the most remarkable things in the book is, so many times in movies you see where the soldier writes their letter. They're like, give this to my family, or
right,
whatever. And Keith wrote his family a letter about 4 weeks before he died. And it's some of the most beautiful sentiments, man. It's remarkable. And I was so blessed, man. His mom let me put it in the book. And so there's actually pictures of it in his handwriting, but then I transcribed it, because by then his handwriting was getting a little bit hard to read. And man, I haven't seen anybody of our proofreaders yet that can read that thing without just needing to grab for their Kleenex or their hanky or their sleeve or whatever, because it's just remarkable. It's such a treasure that's in the book. It's remarkable, man. There's a lot of good stuff there for anybody that wants to pick up a copy. So,
well, like I said, I got my copy is on order, and I got an email this morning saying that it was en route. So I'm super excited about that. So what I want to be able to do after I read the book is bring you back on, and then I might ask some other questions about maybe a little more in depth, but not so revealing, so that people can kind of come on and listen. The bottom line is everyone needs to read this story. Because I've known Walter for a long time, a long part of my life. And I will say this about Walt. He, other than the Holy Spirit, he doesn't get moved very much about people as much as he does, like I said, about the Holy Spirit. When the Spirit moves on Walt, listen, watch out. Take notes, because that's the word of the Lord coming, to be honest. You preach like, I want to shout that out as well. Is, you know what I mean? Go to the YouTube channel. Make sure you go to Wellsprings Church and on YouTube, and check out his messages, because they're amazing. I sit there and listen to them, and I'll put little notes at the bottom for him to read later. So, but all I'm saying is that knowing Walter and his passion for the Lord, and then just the inspiration of, he says how much this really inspired him. This is definitely a place that you need to be. Keith's story is not going to go untold. Thank you to Walter for bringing that up. And I just want to say thank you for, I guess, accepting that role. It had to be devastating as well. I'm sure, because we talked shortly, like I said, on the phone, and there's days I'm sure that you're you're kind of not only inspired, but you're also the reflection of the things that were going on in that time. Some of that probably is a little bit tough to manage.
Dude, I'll tell you, like I say, with hospice, we help people all the time. And I don't mean that from like a cold, aloof place, like everyone matters. Every family is moving. Every situation is touching. But I can honestly say, man, helping Keith, first experience I've ever had in my life where I had to really reach out and get some help of my own, just to put it in the right category. Some good wisdom filled counselor type people, have helped me kind of understand that it's because I allowed myself to approach it more from a parental place, like he was my son. And it's not like he needed that. He has a great family, but for whatever reason, he is the same age as my son. And so something about that, I guess, is what the smart people tell me ended up happening. But yeah, there's definitely something that it just broke my heart in a way that's not like hyperbole at all. Like it really, and I'll definitely, it's far enough behind me that I'm like, everything's fine. And then I went out to the National Guard base the other day. All I was looking for was a unit photo I thought might be nice to include in the book. And I thought maybe they would have a unit photo. And I wound up running into a young staff sergeant that had made the deployment with Keith back when he did, which the odds of that, bro, on a National Guard post in a different town 10 years after the fact. I mean, I had no anticipation I would find anybody that knew him. And she spoke up and she said, "Oh yeah, no, I know Keith." And she asked the question, she said, "You're a hospice chaplain?" And I said, "Yes." And think about this dynamic for a second. She said, "Oh no, is his mom sick?" And I'm standing there, I'm like, okay, I've got control of this. And I did all the way to the point where I had to look this young woman in the eye and say, "No, Keith's the one." She interjected, "Keith is sick?" And I had to say, "No, Keith's gone. I'm trying to help his family with it." And there I was, just a broken old dude in the hallway at the Army National Guard, with them looking at me like, no wonder you guys joined the Navy, you cry too easy kind of thing. But it's been a journey, man. And so my wife has obviously known me the longest, and she had even noticed, like, what's going on with you? And hospice, one of the things about hospice, and she's told me this before, is you don't come home and tell me about your day anymore, because there's not really, what are you wanting me to come home and tell you?
There's not a whole lot of highlights.
Yeah. So, but she could tell that emotionally I was really carrying it with Keith. And she did that wife thing. She just kept bugging and bugging and bugging. "Just tell me, you can tell me." And I'm like, "No, I'm doing you a favor not telling you." And no, but I can see you're struggling with it and I want to help, and this and that and the other thing. So I told her then, and then she finally actually read the book a couple weeks back. And she very playfully came to me crying, and she said, "You big jerk, like if you would have told me all of that." I said, I'm your husband. I'm going to be wrong no matter how we talk about this. And I told you didn't want to know all the way back before, but she did. And the only reason I bring that up is to say that she agreed. She could tell by the writing of the book that it's just because I started to really see Keith as like a son of mine, like somebody I was responsible for. And so I'm really honored and have the privilege to tell his story. But yeah, it hits real close to home for me. So, absolutely.
Well, thank you so much for the time coming on here today. Yeah, I know we had it was kind of quick. I think I reached out and was like, "Hey, let's do the podcast tomorrow." Only because the book just released It just released, and as soon as it released, I wanted to make sure that everybody gets an opportunity to go to Amazon to pick it up. Are there other areas where they can pick up the book?
Right now, we tried to really just zero in and focus.
Okay.
It's actually, some people are contending with me about it, but right now it's actually even only in paper form. Like you can't get an ebook or anything just yet, because I really want people to physically hold it in their hand, and especially because there's so many great photos in it of Keith on deployment, pictures of his family, pictures of some of the stuff they did with him, his last few weeks. It's just got great stuff in it, and I wanted people to actually physically have it and not be just looking at it on their phone or whatever. So yeah, right now it's only on Amazon.
Okay. Is there any support for the family? Is there any link or anything that anybody needs to know about that where they could help support the family or veterans in that same situation?
So there's nothing specific. I will say if people are really curious about this, there's an organization called Burn Pit 360 that has done a lot of advocacy for this, and they are a great resource. Keith's family, they're really having a hard time with the whole thing. Honestly, I'd love to say put a cool little Hollywood rainbow on it, and be like, now they're great. They are having a hard time, but we're hoping that just by more people hearing Keith's story, maybe that'll somehow ease a little bit of that feeling that they have. I think that a lot of people, when somebody dies young, people think, well, maybe that was a waste. And then I think when a soldier dies in battle, you're able to pin the value of that to the fight, right? Like if a person goes down in a gunfight against ISIS, we're able to go like, okay, this is a fight, good and evil, and a person fought. I think that it's really difficult for these families of these troopers that got just poisoned basically by our government's negligence. That there's no other way around it. They were reckless in how they wanted it done. And I think it's really difficult sometimes for these families to put together in their mind, okay, the enemy didn't kill my son, we did. And I think that's an incredibly hard thing for people to figure out how to process and get around. And so I'd ask your audience, if you think of Keith Thomas and you think of his family, pray for him. That's what they need, is a lot of prayers, because they're having a hard time. And they're not the only ones. Like I say, if you go to the Burn Pit 360 site, there's thousands of these young soldiers that either have died from various forms of cancer from this, or who have health problems that are absolutely debilitating to this day. And because it's not an obvious thing, like a shrapnel wound or whatever, sometimes they have such a hard time even getting help. And so it's a national problem that doesn't get talked about enough, for sure.
Do you have any statistics on, during your research on possibly how many veterans were affected during that period? Or is it over the 20 years? There's just so many that it's kind of hard.
Well, so that's the remarkable part, honestly, about what Burn Pit 360 has done, is because they couldn't even get the government to give them any numbers. And so they had gone on their own to say, hey, if your family dealt with this, register with us, because we're trying to put together a registry of who this affected, so that we can go back to Washington and say, like, hey, you don't get to look the other way on this. Like, this is a problem. And they've done a remarkable job, those guys. And I don't do great with numbers. I have just enough dyslexia to get myself in trouble. So I don't want to try to remember their number. But when I saw it, I will say, when I saw the number of people that they have registered on there, I was stunned. It's an enormous number that I think is one of the most kind of underreported things going on with all of this. It was many, many thousands. And
I'm thinking that's just the ones that know about. That's the first time I've ever heard of Burn Pit 360.
Yeah, exactly.
So if they don't even know about it, so there's probably thousands more that don't even know that aren't registered on their program.
Right. Well, and the ambiguities, are really the problem. Our government is pretty good about, hey, we messed that up. Let's kind of shuffle the papers and look the other way. I mean, and I'm not an anti-government guy. I'm just saying we know the history. We sprayed Agent Orange all over the place and then let those guys languish and try to pretend we didn't do that too. The 9/11 first responders, like how many times have we all watched the people with passion, man, advocating like these guys need help. They got poisoned at ground zero.
Mm-hmm.
And it's always so hard to get the powers that be to take up the charge for this stuff. And so it's
I think
think it would be
I think a lot of times the reason why they don't want to stand up and do anything about it is because it would almost make it look like they were taking responsibility.
Yep.
Not in
Yep, exactly.
like taking responsibility in a good way, but saying, yes, it's our fault, admitting the fact. So that's why I believe that there's some fight about that. I don't do a lot of politics talk, but I've got my own opinion. I got my own opinion about a lot of different things. I do know that if I was called back into the military to go to the front lines, I would do it in a heartbeat, because I believe that this country is one of the best experiments that's ever been successful. And I'm super excited about being an American and living where I live and being able to do what I do. So is there going into, not just going to Amazon, is there somewhere where maybe people can reach out to you if they want to tell their story? I'm not asking you to write everybody's story. So, but where they can reach out to you if there's other individuals that can help you to promote what's going
on. So there's I have an author site at walterhill.net. If somebody's wanting to reach out to me, there's a contact thing on there. Our church website, it's the wellspringsvineyard.com. The contact form on the church website comes directly to me. So if somebody's listening to this and they've dealt with this and and there's some way that I can try to help them, or some way I can try to connect them with somebody, or, anything like that. Yeah, I would happily help anybody that I can. But I really think Keith will help everybody when they read about just his courage and his bravery. I think that can do a lot just to inspire all of us to put our best foot forward and stand tall.
So is there a website or somewhere where if people just want to send their not only condolences, but send their support to the family, is there a avenue or a funnel to kind of do that? So that the people understand right now, what the impact has.
Well, so right now I'm kind of acting as the funnel, only because I've had, like we're saying, it's a weird time in America. And so the book is written in such a way where it's hard to track them down, because I was worried about, some sleazebag attorney trying to chase them down to see if they want to sue, or, some kind of crazy foolishness when they've already been dealing with enough. And so, but yes, anybody that wants to send anything to the family, you can send it to me and I can have it to them by that afternoon, because I'm in very regular contact with them.
Outstanding. Well, I really appreciate you coming on and sharing some time with us. I'm excited about reading the book. Like I said, as soon as I get it done, I'm going to be reaching back out to you and we'll do a follow-up interview. Please send my love and my condolences to the family, the Thompson family. Let them know that just even talking about it, I'm impacted and I can't wait.
Yeah.
I may regret when I hit that last page that I've read the whole thing. But I hope it's, I hope this gets the word out and lets people know just the type of character that we have of individuals that are in our military.
Yeah.
Because so many times they get painted with a broad brush.
I think so. And I think it's an eye-opening portrayal about, you hear people say all the time, you don't know what other people are carrying with them. And, just as a side note, and I know we've been talking a while, so I'm sorry, but
you're good.
One of Keith's favorite things in the world is there's a local mom and pop restaurant called Peaches. And his favorite thing was the chocolate malt from Peaches. And so every day either his mom or his love in his life, Kaylee, would go to Peaches and get him a chocolate malt. But I remember thinking so many times, like, nobody in that restaurant has a clue what these ladies are doing with that chocolate malt. Like,
Right.
they have no idea. And so when we're walking around people and somebody looks like they're discouraged or they look tired, man, let's just choose kindness and lift each other up, because you just have no idea what other people might be dealing with. You just don't.
Absolutely. So they didn't do a community outreach and benefits and all that kind of stuff. They just kind of kept to themselves on this whole.
So the nature of what was happening to Keith, he was incredibly self-conscious. It was, the chapter in the book that's got the pictures, I called the chapter "The Ugly Truth." He was very self-conscious, and so no, there wasn't a lot of hey, draw attention to him. He struggled to let his nurse see him. The book, it details how it was a little bit of work for him to let me come see him. He didn't let any of our other team members see him. So yeah, the family really tried to protect him and tried to keep him under wraps, so to speak.
Right.
Because he just felt horrible about his appearance. And so they honored that.
That's excellent. Well, I'm going to go ahead and we're going to head out for right now. This segment, we're going to do a little prayer for the Thomas family, if that's okay.
That'd be great.
I'd be honored if you would do that prayer. If you don't mind, because you're a little more closely connected. So.
Okay.
All right.
Well, Heavenly Father, we just hold these precious people up to you and all the people like them. When soldiers are wounded on the battlefield, Lord, there's medics and people that gather around and help them. When a soldier comes home wounded, it's their family that winds up being their medics and coming around to help them. And they bear a burden and a weight that is just so unseen most of the time. And so I pray for Janet and I pray for their family, but I pray for the other families across the land dealing with taking care of their person. There's so much to it. It's so exhausting. It's so difficult. So I just pray. I pray your grace and your mercy would just pour in on every single one of them. And I pray that you would inspire the people who know them, that are standing around them, to make that extra effort to encourage them, to call them, to lift them up, to, bring them a meal or leave them a flower on the porch with a note of encouragement, something to let them know that they're seen and that we know that they're walking through something hard. Lord, just help them and help us help them. And we just ask it all in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you, brother.
You bet, bud.
All right. So like I said, as soon as I read that book, I'm going to reach back out to you and hopefully we'll have obviously we're going to have a good review, but I'm just saying a lot more of my emotion will probably be involved on the next one. Right.
Dude, you mess around and cry and I will. I can guarantee you that. So, but yeah,
there's nothing wrong with that.
It. And Bill, I do. I appreciate you, man. I see it's a good work you're doing, and I appreciate you giving me the time. So
thank you. Thank you so much. I love you, brother. We'll talk to you soon.
Love you too, man.